I'm Chris, and this is Single Dad Homesteading, brought to you from the beautiful Appalachian Mountains in northeast Tennessee. We're feeding the animals, doing this stuff. Just got the goats fed, got to go get the chickens fed. That's that type of stuff this morning. Let you guys have a little view here. What you guys doing down there? Huh? What are you guys doing? You can come say hi? You gonna eat the piece of paper? All right, so the last video that we put out, we asked you guys to ask us some questions about homesteading, about being single parent homesteading, about being a single person homesteading, person with disabilities homesteading, the whole 9 yards. So this is the destroyed garden for this year. We have actually had so much water that I've got 7 tomato plants and about 10 in the greenhouse and some figs and stuff like that. So it's hard. This year's garden's going to be done. Hopefully it'll slack off and I can get a second run of beans in that'll actually survive. So I asked you guys to ask some questions of me. I had Elyn ask you guys a question and myself that's going to ask you a question at the end of the video. So let's get started. First one is, how do you spell Elyn's name? Elyn, you spell E-L-Y-N. That question was asked quite a bit through email and stuff, so that's where that's at. Number one job. This one's going to be a little bit longer answer. Number one job and number one thing getting a homestead set up. Infrastructure. I've said that on multiple videos before. Infrastructure is the number one thing that you have to look at. That would be fencing. That'll be chicken houses, storage barns, goat barns, milking stations. That house is secondary when you're getting everything set up if you're going to have animals. So infrastructure, absolutely number one thing that you have to get set up and get ready to go before you jump into anything else. If you plan on having animals on your homestead from the beginning, get your infrastructure done. Get your fencing, get your areas, your paddocks, your things of that nature set up and done. If you don't, you'll hate homesteading in a very short time. And there's multiple ways that you can do that and get it set up. And let me take a break and show you this baby cub bear track. Look at this. That's a baby bear. You can see that the front end curled down from its claws. Almost looks like a canine, but it's rounder. So that's interesting over here in the garden. So need to keep our eyes out. A little close there, sorry. A little sidetrack. So yeah, so that would be your number one. Mello, you asked the question about keeping raccoons and things of that nature out of your chicken coop and stuff. Well, this is what I use for my goats and my chickens. The goats can climb this, but if you electrify the top, it will, but it works good for the, it works good for your, if you electrify the top, it works good for your goats. It works great for chickens. It's a little heavier duty to keep raccoons and stuff from coming out. Now your rats, which are your number one nuisance with chickens, you still got to work on it. But I'll also wire the bottom with what's called concrete wire. And concrete wire is almost a diamond mesh hard steel wire that you lay stone on houses and stuff with. And they really can't get through that. And I'll put about a foot of that up and then run it underneath the bottom structure of the run for my chickens. And that helps out a ton. Fortifying the doors on your, fortifying the doors that are on your coop is another big one as well. That seems to be a weak point for most everybody on their coops. Let's see, next question comes from Amy Williamson, and that was about how you get involved in things in your community, and such as your community kitchens, your homesteading community where you're going out and you're doing programs and partnerships with other homesteaders and learning the skills that you need on homestead. Number one, I'll tell you to check out is most communities now have a community kitchen that's set up, and the purpose of those community kitchens are setting up so that you can start businesses. So if you have a garden and you want to start, making salsa, or you want to do a barbecue sauce or a hot sauce. The one in our area here in UNICOI, Tennessee, you can actually go in. They have a labeler, they have a jar, they have big pressure canners and stuff like that. But they will also at times rent that out to bigger groups of people. And the way that you go about doing that is you do a cooking class, or you set up a canning class yourself and sell slots to it and go about that way. Or meal prep and planning. If you wanted to do that, that would be a great one. My arms are so tired from helping Jess and Maya last weekend. So that's a great one. You got your LDCs if you're wanting to can and do number 10 cans full food. You need to look for those. That's a Church of Latter-day Saints. They have big kitchen setup that you can go work through. And then the other is throw something up on Craigslist and say, hey, look, I'm a new gardener. I don't have a lot of space. I'm wanting to learn how to garden. If you're an experienced gardener and have property, you know, would you give me a 20 by 40 foot space to plant some plants this year and, you know, kind of help me out? You would be so surprised what they might come back to you with. And it kind of goes into another question I might answer in a minute. They might come to you and say, yeah, you'll come help me weed and plant and take care of my garden. I'll absolutely share that information with you. So April, thank you for that question. That's a good one. Mims's garden. How much does the steel FS131R that I bought from Jones's Hardware in UNICOI, how much does it weigh? 12.1 pounds. So it is a heavy weed eater just to carry around without the strap. With the strap, it really takes off that weight. That weed eater is not made for someone of a smaller stature. So keep that in mind, and you'll enjoy it more than you would without that strap. So there you go, Mims. And then the last question I have before I ask Elyn's question of you guys, and my question for you guys comes from Terry B, and it's how to homestead with limits. Miss Terry's got some issues. You can go and read her comment underneath the video. I found a pond at Jess's house, Jess and Maya's house. Go in there and read that. She put in her story in there. You can go read it. She's had some issues with her eyes. She's a single mom. She's getting up a little bit more in age and stuff. So, Terry, here's the way that I would tell you. It goes back to the last question. I would look for others in my community under your situation where you have limitations that are economic, you have limitations that are physical, and you have limitations on space. So what I would do is I would reach out, like some of the comments you've gotten on your comment, I would reach out to others that may have some similar disabilities, and I would get together as a group, and I would look and see for those people that may be getting up in age too, but they have property, but they can't get out and do all the work by themselves. They've lost their husband or they've lost their wife. They have a bum leg, so they can get out and sit stationary and do certain things, and work with them and have areas where you can complement each other, but you can still get the work done. I depend on friends and family to come over and help on a lot of stuff, being a single dad here. And a lot of you guys don't know this. I'm big, I'm in shape, I'm strong, but I'm disabled too. I've had a shoulder surgery. I've had 7 knee surgeries. I've got bad ankles. My back is bad. My hips are bad. And, so I work from that point of disability too. So everything that I do, if it's weed eating, if it's using the rototiller, if it's anything of that nature, I have to think about that long and hard before I jump into doing it. Sometimes you just got to jump in and do it. Because you're disabled, because you have an issue, because you're getting older, doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you have to use that brain that you have to figure it out. But if you let a disability or a limitation stop you, that's you. That's not the limitation. That's not the disability, because you can figure out a way to do anything. Maybe you can't have a full garden, and maybe you only can do 6 or 7, little potted tomato plants with basil growing around the bottom, and or carrots in a trench pond outside your front door of your apartment, or whatever it is that you're going to do. It comes down to your limitations and what you do. And I'm not saying that about you, Terry. I'm just saying that's an issue that you have to work through, and your community can help you work through that. This community can help you work through that. Throw out that information on Craigslist. You know, let people know what you're looking for. Face group post and things of that nature, where you got these communities of people that are doing what we're doing. Me and Jess and Maya have known each other for 2.5 years now of actually meeting and being friends. Big Bear the same way, and we all just put on our pants the same way. You know, everybody looks at Jess and Maya because their channel's so big and they're being successful and prospering, and that is amazing. But they're just people. They get up in the morning, they eat, they have a passion for the Lord, they have passion for Christ, they have passion for gardening. Jeremiah has passion for his wife. Jess has passion for her husband. She has passion for the community. They all have that passion that starts with the passion for the Lord. And, you know, those things are what you have to count on. That's what you have to look for in those friends that you make that are going to be lifelong friends. You can do anything you want. So that was a little long-winded there and getting into that. But Elyn has a great question for you guys, and this question is Elyn's question to you guys. So I'm going to read this. And this is her. She's 8 years old. And I promise you this question came from her, not from me. It says, what is your fear that keeps you from homesteading? I was going through these questions and reading and telling her what the questions were people had, and let her kind of answer with me on some of this stuff, because she hears me talk about it, she hears me do it. And I said, what's a question you would ask everybody else that wants to homestead? And she goes, what keeps you from it? What makes you afraid to homestead? 8 years old. She's pretty wise. So what's your fear that's keeping you from homesteading? I should probably end it there, but I'm going to ask my question too, because I said I was going to do it. So my question for you guys is, how many of you would harvest wild game and utilize that when you're on that smaller piece of property? We've talked about this in the past. How many of you guys would harvest wild game, deer hunting, rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, fishing? The ocean, if you're by the ocean, is a great one. How many would utilize that? How many do utilize that? And if you don't, why not? What's your excuse for that? And I'm not going to beat you up. Nobody else is going to beat you up. If they lay comments down on you that's there, this is going to be for an open conversation. So answer those two questions for me down below in the comments. Let Elyn know, what are your fears? Why are you not homesteading yet? If this is a passion that you have, why haven't you pulled the trigger? And for me, would you, do you, and why don't you utilize wild game and the ocean of catching fish and our creeks and our rivers and the natural resources that we have? All right, guys, from the chicken coop in the garden, we're going to tell you bye. God bless. Live with what God gives you, and we're out of here.